Hi, and thanks for joining. If you're new here, I'm Wendy and this is Nina's Jewels. My husband and I buy things at garage sales, flea markets, thrift stores, just about anywhere we can find things to sell online and flip for a profit. If that's content you're interested in, you're in the right place. Today's video is going to be what sold for the week of August 13th through 19th. Let's get started. The first thing that sold was a men's shirt by the brand Reason. It was a heavily printed button-down shirt, and the style was called Block Graffiti. This is not a brand I've ever picked up before. I just picked it up based on the style. In fact, if I ever see like a really heavily printed button-down men's shirt, I will generally pick it up because those types of shirts always sell really well for us. We got this at a garage sale. We paid $2.75 for it, and it sold really quickly for $44.99, which was our full asking price. Next up was a vintage lot of 3 1970s Coca-Cola branded carafes. Some of these were from Godfather's Pizza, and some of these were from Whataburger. These were my husband's personal carafes from when he was a kid. We had these in our eBay store forever. I mean, maybe for like 4 years before they sold. And they had a lot of watchers on them for a long time, but we could just never get them sold. So this is not an item that I would ever pick up if I saw it out in the wild. It was hard to ship, hard to store, not something that I would ever seek out. But we did eventually sell them for our full asking price of $39.99. And because they had belonged to our family for so long, we said that we didn't have any cost associated with them. Next up was another item that belonged to my husband. These were a pair of men's Dockers slip-on black leather dress shoes. These were shoes that he used to wear to work back when he had an office job, and he no longer needed these. These sold for a best offer of $30, and we got positive feedback on these. Next up was a pair of men's Justin brown Apache leather cowboy boots. We got these at a garage sale for just $2, and they sold on best offer for $40 even. Next up was a vintage 1992 single stitch t-shirt from the 17th annual St. Patrick's Day road race. We got this at an estate sale. We paid $3 for it, and it sold on best offer for $14, and we got positive feedback on it. It was a really specific t-shirt, so it wasn't a very high value t-shirt, but we will usually pick up any single stitch vintage t-shirts that we can find that we can get for cheap enough because they will generally sell. I think this one might have had like a small stain on the front of it as well. Next up was a red and white geometric print dress by the brand Jessica Howard. We had gotten this at a thrift store. We paid $7.10, which is pretty high. I'm not sure why we paid that much, but it did eventually sell on best offer for $22 even. It went to Canada through the global shipping program, and we got positive feedback on that. Next up was a Baldwin of North America pewter candlestick holder for a taper candle. This was gifted to us to sell by a friend who was downsizing from her large home into a townhome. And that sold for $19.98 on offer to buyer, and we had no cost associated with it, and we did get positive feedback on it. Next up was a 19-inch heavy-duty nylon golf club or golf bag rain hood cover. This was in that big bin of golf accessories that we got at the garage sale. We paid $5 for the entire bin. That bin had a bunch of different golf accessories in it. It had golf balls. It had golf club head covers in it. And then it had this rain hood cover and then another one. And I was shocked at how fast these rain hood covers sold for. They both sold either the same day or within like 2 or 3 days of us listing them. So this is the first one that sold. This was the one that was unbranded. This one sold for our full asking price of $21.99 very quickly. And like I said, we had paid $5 for the entire bin. I broke down our cost for the items in that bin kind of based on, what they were. I said that we paid 50 cents for this item, and this one sold for our full asking price. The next one that sold was branded TaylorMade, so it was a much nicer rain hood cover and sold for a lot more. This one was a TaylorMade 21-inch black nylon golf hood cover. This one sold immediately as well for our full asking price of $49.99. And I said that we paid $1 for it out of that big bin of golf accessories. So now I know if I ever see any golf bag rain hoods anywhere at a garage sale or in the bins or anywhere, to grab them because they will sell really, really quickly. Definitely a BOLO item to look out for. Next up was another Betty Crocker's cookbook. I mentioned in a recent What Sold video to be on the lookout for these because they sell quickly, and here's another one that sold. This one was from 1976, and it was people refer to this one as the red pie cover. This one we picked up at an estate sale for $3.25, and it sold for $12.74. The buyer did pay our full asking price, but they used a coupon with it. It was not in excellent condition. It had some damage, and we disclosed that in the listing, and it still sold. Next up was a kimchi in blue, which I think is an Urban Outfitters brand. This was a women's extra small denim vest, had a boho style to it. This we got at a garage sale. We paid $1 for it, and it sold on offer to buyer for $19.98. Next up was something we found in the Goodwill bins, and it was new in the package, and it actually said on the package that it was a free giveaway. But we tend to pick up anything in the Goodwill bins that's new in the package because we can get it for so cheap. We probably paid, maybe 10 or 15 cents for this item based on the weight. And it was a reusable tote bag, reusable grocery bag type item. It was by the brand The Navigators, and it was a yellow sunflower print, and it said on the outside, "Trust in the Lord," and Proverbs 3:5. And so, we pick stuff like this up because people might have had this item, lost it, or they might have had one and it got worn out. Might be meaningful or sentimental to them in some way, and they might be looking to replace it. And so we had this item in our store for maybe, 6 or 8 months, and it did eventually sell for an offer to buyer of $11.18. And like I said, we had gotten that at the Goodwill outlet. I broke down our cost per item that day and said that we paid 68 cents. So definitely worth it for us, in my opinion, to pick up stuff at the Goodwill bins that are new in package because you can get them for cheap enough, and we generally sell everything that we pick up. Next up was another item we got in the Goodwill bins, and this was definitely worth it, and also a big surprise to me how much money we ended up making on these. This was the third of 3 that we sold, and this was a 51 by 40 inch lightweight fleece Henry Cavill blanket. So it was just a big fleece blanket with an image of Henry Cavill on it. And I didn't know what they were at first because they were all packaged up in like a shrink wrap. But one of them had been opened, and so I was able to look at it and saw that it was a Henry Cavill blanket. And I really hemmed and hawed, do I pick this up or do I not pick this up? I wasn't sure if they would sell. Couldn't find any similar comps to them online when I looked, but I was like, I'm just going to grab these and see what happens. And surprisingly, we sold all 3 of them for between $30 and $40. This is the third one of the 3 that we sold. This one sold for our full asking price of $39.99. And since we got this in the bins, I said that we just paid 92 cents for it. Next up was a 2015 Yeti Coolers brown camo mesh trucker hat. This we got at a garage sale. We paid $2 for it, and it sold on best offer for $19. Definitely Yeti branded baseball caps are worth picking up if you see them. They don't sell for much more than about $25, but they do sell quickly. Next up was a replacement remote control with the manual for a Vizio soundbar. This was one of those extra items that wasn't manifested on the B-Stock liquidation palette that we purchased, and it sold for $15.99. I will link the liquidation video above and in the description box below so you can check out our experience with that. We paid just about $3,100 for that pallet in total. When we broke down our cost per listing, it broke down to about $47.18. So I have listed on our spreadsheet that we paid $47.18 for this particular item. So we're in the negative on this item, but we're getting really, really close to being in the positive on this liquidation purchase in its entirety. So that's good news. Next up was an American Girl brand girls size 12 hot pink sundress. So this wasn't a sundress for a doll. This was a sundress for a little girl. So it would have matched the doll's sundress. We did not have the matching doll's sundress though. All we had was the kid's sundress. This actually belonged to my daughter, and she had grown out of it. This sold for a best offer of $12. Next up was another item we got in the Goodwill bins that we just picked up just because it was new in package. It was a Greenbrier brand stocking stuffer Christmas themed peg game. So it's one of those games where you jump the peg and then pull it out. So like a brain teaser type game. It was, like I said, it was new in the package. We got it in the Goodwill bins, and I said that we paid 67 cents for it, and it sold on best offer for $8. Next up was one of the vintage Playboys that we got in the big lot of Playboys that I bought from someone off of Nextdoor. We paid $1.43 per issue for those Playboys, and this one sold for $11.89. We have, I think my husband said we maybe have about 8 Playboys left, and I was just thinking the other day that we should maybe lot them together, so I was gonna talk to him about that and see if we might want to do that, because sales on those Playboys has definitely slowed down significantly. Next up was another item we got in the Goodwill bins. This was a clothing item that we picked up because it was new with tags. We didn't pick it up because of the brand item. We picked it up because it was new with tags. But it did have a lot of interest on it for a long time, although it did take a little while to sell. It was the brand August Silk, and it was a sleeveless, long, open front cardigan in the color charcoal gray. And that sold for $15 even on best offer, and we had paid $1.33 at the bins that day. Next up was an item that was in that big box of car accessories out in the garage at the estate sale. I had gotten that box for $15. I will link that estate sale video above and in the description box below. You can see what all, I don't know if I show what all we got in that box, but I'll show when we pick that box up. This was one of those cassette adapters that you would put in your car back in the old days when I used to use one when I had we still had cassettes in our cars, but I had like a Sony Discman. And so I would put this CD adapter in my car and then plug that into my Discman so that I could play CDs in my car. So this is one of those cassette adapters. And this one, there were actually 2 of these in that box. This one was the Philips version. And I said that we paid 75 cents for each of the items in that $15 box, and this sold for $12.99. We still have another one of these cassette adapters that's a different brand left to sell from that purchase. Next up was an item that was mine. I had a bunch of snowman themed holiday decorations that I decided to sell. This was a San Francisco music box company, and you wound it up and it played Jingle Bells. It was just a really small little music box. It was cute. It sold for $9.68, and it was a gift to me, so I had no cost involved with it. It was gifted to me a long time ago, and I just I no longer display those snowmen items, so I decided to sell them. We did get positive feedback on that item. Next up was an item we got at an estate sale, and it was a discontinued item. And I usually will pick up discontinued items because people are looking for those and they will sell quickly. Even if they don't sell for tons of money, they usually sell quickly, so it's worth picking them up. This was an Easy Quilting by Wrights 3-pack of cloth fabric washout pencils. We picked those up for 50 cents and they sold pretty quickly for $11.98, and we did get positive feedback on those. Next up was a VHS in a clamshell of the movie The Goonies. This was actually a former Hollywood movie rental video. So it was stamped with Hollywood Video on the side. And we disclosed all of that. We got this at our local thrift store. We paid just 49 cents for it, and it sold for $9.99, which was our full asking price. Next up was one of my son's old t-shirts. It was a Champion men's medium Jersey script logo t-shirt. It sold for $9 even on best offer, and this was gifted to him, so there was no cost for us on that. Next up was a lot of 10 satin wired wraparound headbands. They kind of had a rockabilly look to them. I had purchased these originally for myself a long time ago, but the wires in them I found to be uncomfortable. I didn't use them. I actually just tried them on once or twice and then decided that I found them to be uncomfortable, never used them, put them back in their original package and listed them for sale. So they were new items. They sold for $18.38 on offer to buyer, and we did get a return request opened on those. The buyer stated that they did not fit. She had purchased them for her daughter and they did not fit her. So we accepted that return. They were returned to us. We refunded the buyer and we've since relisted those. Next up was another item that belonged to me. It was just a shirt that I no longer wore. It was an Old Navy neon green and gray thermal long sleeve t-shirt. That sold for $10 even on best offer, and that had been mine for many, many years, so I don't know what our cost was on that, but we did get positive feedback on it. Next up was a really cool small zipper pouch, like a makeup bag or a pencil bag or something like that. It was a neoprene zipper bag. It had like celebrity mugshots on it. So it had Jim Morrison, Michael Jackson, a whole bunch of different celebrity mugshots on it. We found that in the Goodwill bins. We just picked it up because we thought it was cool and that somebody might want it. It was in our store for quite a while. It didn't have any brand associated with it, so it was a little bit hard to market. I think it was just about the right person coming along and seeing it and also thinking, oh, that's really cool, I'm going to get that, which is eventually what happened. And that did sell for $15.99, and we had paid, actually, I don't know what we paid because somehow this wasn't one of those items that didn't make it into our spreadsheet. And so, you know, we probably paid around 50 cents for it at Goodwill, but for some reason I probably just forgot to put it in our spreadsheet. So I have 0 as the cost because I had already worked that cost into the other items from our Goodwill pickup that day. Next up was a Lego Ninjago Green Dragon set. I had picked this up at a garage sale where I got a whole bunch of Lego sets. And I do have a video showing all the different Lego sets that I got. I'll link that above and in the description box below. This set sold for $34.99. I paid $75 for all of the Lego sets, but broke down my cost and said that I paid $11 for this one, and it sold for our asking price. I think this might have been the first, no, this wasn't the first one that sold. This was maybe like the third one that sold. We have sold a lot of those Lego sets. The majority of them. We've definitely made our money back on that purchase. We've sold a lot of them on eBay, and we sold a couple of them just locally as well. And then the last item that we sold that was non-card was a lot of 12 HelloFresh recipe cards. We used to do HelloFresh, which are the curated recipe boxes where they send you the ingredients and then you cook your meals at home. But we've since canceled that because we were wanting to save some money. But I was scrolling around on eBay looking at something completely different, and I just happened to notice that people were selling some of their HelloFresh cards, and I was like, oh, well, you know, being the hustler that I am, I was like, I'm going to sell some of my HelloFresh cards. So I gathered up all the recipe cards that were duplicates of ones that I already had, and then ones that were ones that I didn't necessarily want to keep. Made a big lot of 12, and those eventually sold for $14.99. So there's another item that if you do like HelloFresh or Blue Apron or any of those types of things, you can sell your recipe cards. Just another way to recoup some cost on that. So I said my cost was $0 because we definitely got our enjoyment out of those. That was just added benefit with that. Those sold for my asking price, and I was just, you know, thrilled that we were able to sell those. So maybe one day we'll start doing HelloFresh again. I loved it. It was wonderful. I highly recommend it if you have not tried it. Their recipes are delicious. I'm not sure we ever got a recipe that we didn't like. I actually liked every single recipe I got from HelloFresh. There were just some that I really loved and some that I liked, but their recipes are delicious. Okay, next up, I'm going to go over all of the collectible cards that sold for us this particular week. We did not have a lot of card sales this week. And, you know, I've mentioned in previous videos that some weeks our card sales are just through the roof and some weeks card sales are just really, really small. This particular week, card sales were really, really small. We did have 2 high value card sales. The first one was one of the Soul Ring cards. Like I've mentioned, we have sold several of these Soul Ring cards. This is maybe the 3rd or 4th one that we've sold. This one sold for $103.50, and that was on auction, and we did get positive feedback on that. Next, we sold another Magic the Gathering card. This one was from the Unlimited set. This card was called Fast Bond. It sold on best offer for $109.99. Unfortunately, when the buyer got it, he noticed that there was some indentations on the card, which you could only see when you held it in the light a certain way. And so he did open a return request and sent it back to us. We refunded him, and we've since relisted it, disclosing that information. I will say that selling Magic cards, definitely you need to be very thorough with your listings. You need to be very thorough with your pictures. And we always try to be. This buyer was very, very nice about his return, ended up giving us positive feedback on it. You know, we try to be very nice when we handle returns from buyers, especially if we've missed something like that. You know, we always try to make it as easy as possible for them. And I usually actually try to use the words "you're right" when talking with buyers if there's something that we've missed, when they point it out, something that mentally helps them understand that you recognize that, you know, you've made a mistake, and helps smooth things over a little bit. But Magic the Gathering buyers tend to be very particular with their card purchases, and I don't blame them. They're generally spending quite a bit of money on these cards, and they want them to look really good. They also want to know what they're buying, so you need to make sure that your photos are really excellent, that you can see the card from all different angles, so you can see those kinds of like surface issues with the cards. So when a buyer points something like that out to us that we've missed, we just take that as a learning opportunity to improve our photos. We started taking photos at other certain angles to make sure that that kind of thing was shown. So, you know, we just try not to let things like that bother us. He ended up giving us positive feedback. That was not an issue. We've now since got that card relisted. We lowered the price a little bit, and everything worked out for the best on that one. Next up, I will go over any cards that we sold this particular week that were valued at $10 or under. Unfortunately, this particular week, we only sold 1 card valued at $10 or under, which is so weird because we were just coming off of a week or so where we sold huge numbers of cards. But this week, we only sold 1 card valued at $10 or under, and it was a Flea Ultra card of Roger Clemens valued at $2.39. So that wraps up our week of sales for the week of August 13th through 19th. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please make sure to let us know by hitting the like button. And if we've earned your subscription, please subscribe with the notification bell turned on so you can be kept informed of all of our latest content. Thank you so much for watching, and we will catch you on the flip side.